So the final E3 press conference of the day was Sony. Following up after Square Enix and Ubisoft, I was definitely curious to see what Sony was going to be offering. Now, before we get into this video, I know what you're saying. RGT 85, where the hell was your live stream of the Sony event? Well, Ubisoft actually made a claim against my YouTube account, and currently I cannot stream right now. So, that's really fun, because who streams during E3, right? Right? Anyways, Ubisoft has contacted me and said that they are working to fix this situation. It's just a glitch. But yes, I'm unable to stream right now, unfortunately. So right now we'll just be doing recap videos. But like I said, Sony's E3, I was definitely looking forward to it. Would there be any surprises? What would Death Stranding bring to the table? The Last of Us 2, SpiderMan. And honestly, I was pretty impressed with Sony's performance. There was definitely some low points and the pacing was definitely a bit off. But for the most part, I was definitely blown away by a lot of things that we saw. So in this video, we're going to talk about the high points of the event. We're going to talk about the low points of the event. And then, of course, we're going to grade the overall event. So sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about Sony's E3 2008 press conference and that Resident Evil 2 remake, baby.
Hey, RGT 85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards. So one of the points that I really enjoyed in this press conference was The Last of Us 2, which is kind of interesting to me because I'm not the biggest fan of The Last of Us. I thought the first game was very good. I did not think it was a great game. There was definitely a lot of stuff that I liked, but there was definitely a lot of stuff that I didn't like. And it was definitely sort of an 8 out of 10 for me, not a 9 or a 10 out of 10. So The Last of Us 2 was definitely on my radar though, because I wanted to see how they advanced the gameplay of it. And from the trailer that we saw today, the gameplay actually looks a lot more refined. I really enjoyed the different environments that Ellie was in. I thought they looked really good. Almost gave off that new Tomb Raider style feeling to me, but I think that's a good thing. It really blends in well with the stealth mechanics. The audio in the game was very nice as well. You could hear lots of cool sound effects. But obviously one of the big draws to the Last of Us series is, of course, the enemy AI. It's pretty much known for that, and the enemy AI in this game looks so good. And yes, the jury is out on whether this was a scripted event or not. I'm not quite sure if that will actually be in the final game, but if it's representative of the gameplay, then I think it's going to be a really awesome experience. The way the combat works and you can dodge the incoming enemy attacks, it just looks so fluid and real-like, and it's just really amazing to see just how these characters really feel and look human. I haven't really seen anything quite like that in a video game before, and it looks like you can go through different situations in a multitude of different ways. You can go in stealthy, or you can go in with a more headstrong, sort of attack and just go all out. And the game looks really violent as well, too, so that's a cool thing in my opinion. They definitely didn't skimp on the violence in this game, and that's a good thing in my opinion. So I think The Last of Us 2 is shaping up to be a much better game than The Last of Us 1, and at least in my eyes. I know a lot of people love the original Last of Us, but I'm definitely way more excited for The Last of Us 2 than I was for the original game. Another game that I really liked that Sony presented was, of course, Spider-Man. Now, we've seen a good bit of Spider-Man. It's been on the E3 show floor for a while, but now it's finally coming out this year. I wanted to see more gameplay, and thankfully Sony delivered on that aspect. They showed a lot of gameplay for Spider-Man, and the combat just looks like so much fun. It definitely has that Arkham stench to it, but that's not a bad stench in my opinion, but that's sort of what superhero games should sort of be striving for. I think that was a really good combat system, but there's definitely a lot more. There's a lot more aerial attacks and juggles and things like that, and everything just looks very fast and fluid, almost a bit scripted at times, but then you realize you're in control of all of this stuff, and that's what I think makes this game look really special. Plus, they really only showed gameplay. They didn't show any web slinging throughout the city, so they're really sort of keeping that to your open imagination to let you experience that on your own, and I definitely like that about the presentation. Another game that I didn't really know too much about going into this was the Ghost of Tsushima, and I might not even be saying that right. If I'm saying it wrong, I sincerely apologize. But I had heard things about the game, and I was definitely interested to see it, and I'm kind of on the fence about it. I think I like it more than I dislike it. It definitely has that sort of Sony first-party title sort of aesthetic to it, though, which a lot of games are doing nowadays. You know, God of War, Uncharted, the new Tomb Raider game, the Last of Us 2, they all sort of have that same graphical style, and it definitely has that sort of similar graphical style, but I think it does enough to sort of differentiate itself. There's a lot of cool looking combat in the game, almost kind of like For Honor style combat, but obviously this is a single player experience, and I really like that. There's definitely some ninja elements in there as well, almost like Tenchu of The Last of Us Creed, because there's a little Assassin's Creed in there too. It's definitely not the most original game that we saw during the E3 presentation, but it's definitely one of the most unique in the way that it blends all of these different genres together, and I think it looks like a really solid game. But the biggest game for me, holy crap on a stick, Resident Evil 2 Remake. I lost my mind. I was watching the stream over with Wood on Twitch, because Wood's YouTube account is also messed up right now for streaming. Thanks guys! Thanks guys. And I was just absolutely blown away. I had a total fangirl moment. I absolutely loved what I saw. I thought the character models looked great. Leon looked great. Claire looked great. Everything about the game just looked great. The zombies, the lickers, the atmosphere, the redone graphics, and the fact that it's coming out in January of 2019 is just the icing on the cake for me. Once again, we get another Resident Evil game in January, and I was just absolutely blown away by that game. I can't wait to see more of it. Yes, they didn't really show much actual gameplay of it, but that didn't matter to me. What they showed was amazing. What they showed I absolutely loved, and I cannot wait to see more of it. Definitely, so far, my biggest E3 highlight to date. Resident Evil 2 is back, and that's amazing. But yes, there were some problems with Sony's press conference. You noticed I did not talk about a certain game, and I know you guys are getting mad in the comments section down below, but hear me out on this. Hear me out. And then there was one final flaw with Sony's presentation, but we have to talk about Death Stranding, folks. We have to talk about Death Stranding. Death Stranding I have seen so many times. Death Stranding is a game I want to know more about. I want to know how this game plays. I want to know what this game does. And we really didn't get that answer. We saw lots of walking scenes, and yes, you could sort of break down the trailer to where the Norman Reedus character, whenever the rain would hit him, he seemed to age more, and it seems like this black rain is causing people to age and whatnot. We got some side characters thrown into the mix. We sort of know a little bit more about the world, but we still really didn't see any gameplay. Most of the gameplay was literally just the character walking around on different environments. I want to see some sort of combat. Is this just a walking simulator with some stealth elements in it that's just telling a story? That doesn't seem very Kojima-like. Kojima sort of likes to go over the top with his gameplay elements. So I don't know. I really wanted to give Death Stranding a chance this year, and I think you guys know that. In my pre-E3 video for Sony, this was something I really wanted to see, and unfortunately, I'm still very disappointed with Death Stranding. I want to know what the game plays like. What sort of game is it? And it just seems like they can't give me any answers. And the biggest problem with Sony's presentation was just the pacing of it. The pacing of it was absolutely atrocious. They did the Last of Us 2 sort of teaser thing and showed the gameplay, and then they went to an intermission, and it was like, what? And like, there was just a pause in the action, and then they said, oh, our press conference is starting, and it was like 30 minutes after it was supposed to start, and there was just a lot of weird stuff, live musical performances that just weren't very interesting. A lot of these companies just don't get it. I think companies like Nintendo with the Nintendo Direct and Square Enix's presentation, they do it right. They get everything in there in a nice, clear, concise package, and it doesn't take a lot of time. There's not a lot of fluff. You don't have people talking about stuff that you don't really care about. You want to see the games themselves. You want to see the actual games. And I felt like that's where Sony dropped the ball the hardest, was just in the actual presentation of it. But all things considered, there was a lot of stuff I liked. Hell, Sony just sold me on Kingdom Hearts 3, because honestly, I was not too interested in that game. But when they showed that Pirates of the Caribbean level of the game, I was like, why is every other trailer not showing this? Because this is what I want to see. This looks awesome. And that really made the game stand out for me. The gameplay that they showed for Kingdom Hearts 3 was way better than Square Enix did, was way better than Xbox One did. And just adding in things like The Last of Us 2 looking so good, adding in things like the Ghost of Tsushima really sort of blending in different games, and of course Resident Evil 2, I'm going to give Sony's press conference a solid B. I think they did absolutely great. I loved what I saw for this year. I loved what I saw for the future. If they could have just done the pacing better, if Death Stranding could have actually had some information, I would have absolutely loved it more. But as it stands, it's a solid B. Now, if Resident Evil 2 wasn't in there, my score would be drastically different. drastically different. But the Resident Evil 2 factor, folks, you can't deny it. You cannot deny Resident Evil 2. This is, oh, it looks so good. It looks so good. So let me know in the comments section down below what you thought of Sony's press conference. Did you hate the pacing of it like I did? Did you like what you saw from the big games like The Last of Us and the Ghost of Tsushima and of course Spider-Man? What the hell do you think of Death Stranding? And how excited are you for Resident Evil 2? And thank you for checking out this video. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. I don't know when I'll be streaming again. Hopefully this gets resolved by tomorrow. Spawnwave and I had a lot of cool plans for you guys, but Spawnwave's account is actually fixed right now. Mine is not. So I don't know what the future of the streaming is going to hold. Hopefully it gets fixed by tomorrow, but if it doesn't, I sincerely apologize. I will be doing videos on Nintendo throughout the day though, so don't worry. But yeah, it's definitely a big bummer, you know. It's just, but it is what it is. You got to roll with the breaks sometimes. And thank you guys for watching this video. If you really enjoyed it, check out the links in the description box down below. Patreon, t-shirts, social media. I've been staring at screens all day. I have to stare at a screen and edit this video. My eyes are completely shot. I don't even know what I'm looking at right now. So I'm going to finish this and then get some sleep. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.